I have been in a long-distance relationship with my girlfriend for a couple of years now, and every summer and winter break, I'm able to go travel and see her. This encounter happened about 2 years ago at my girlfriend's house. I should mention that my girlfriend lives on the outskirts of her city in Mexico, where houses are around 200 to 300 yards apart and surrounded by dense woods. Usually, days and nights there go about peacefully, accompanied by the sound of woods and the occasional car passing by from others who live nearby. I had always considered her place to be perfect just to be able to spend time outdoors, until this occasion. Honestly, I don't think I have ever been this scared in my life. This sighting will be carved in my mind forever. On a chilly night of December, I was at my girlfriend's house, and I had planned to spend the night with her since she would have been by herself that day. Her mom was out of town, and she didn't want to stay by herself either. We were having dinner at the kitchen at around 8 p.m. We chatted about activities that we could do tomorrow, tasks her mom asked her to do, how much we missed each other, among others. After about an hour of conversation and laughs, we decided to go into the living room and cuddle on the couch, watching TV. We both got up and put the dishes in the sink. She went into her bedroom, and I went outside to the bathroom. The house layout consisted of a long corridor that connected pretty much every room in the house, and a back door at the end of the corridor, which led to the patio. The patio was open, full of trees, plants, and the only thing separating the patio from the woods was a fence, made up of stones and barbed wire that stood at around 1 meter tall. Halfway down the patio, there was the bathroom, being lit by a single and weak light bulb. So if anybody wanted to go, they had to walk outside, even if it had to be in the middle of the night. I'm not coming here at night, I thought. I remember when I opened the back door and stepped into the patio, a cold breeze stroked my face and sent shivers across my back. So, I hurried to go back as quickly as possible because, to be honest, I was a little spooked going outside in the darkness, knowing that the woods were pretty much a few steps away. I finished doing my business, washed my hands, and started walking back, being careful not to trip on something because the light bulb was almost non-existent. I was about halfway when I heard a noise to my left, like someone stepping on a branch and breaking it. I stopped and quickly turned, trying to see what made the noise, but I could only see a portion of the fence and nothing but darkness beyond that. However, I had this weird feeling that someone or something was watching me, something on the other side of the fence. I stood there in silence for around 30 seconds, listening to the surroundings, only to notice the crickets had stopped chirping. I got a bit freaked out because I knew for sure they were chirping when I first got out. I was somewhat scared to move, but I did anyway, almost running to get inside as soon as possible. When I returned, I went to my girlfriend, who was already in the living room, laying down on the couch with a blanket on top. She noticed I was a bit agitated and asked me what was wrong. "Your patio is scary," I jokingly said, not wanting to tell her what I felt, because she hates anything that has to do with horror or scary stuff. I decided to brush it off, so I ran around the couch and sat at the other end of it, putting my girlfriend's legs on my lap, asking what she was watching on the TV. I turned to my right and noticed there was a huge window on one side of the wall that gave me a perfect view of the patio. I didn't see it before because it was next to a cabinet, being covered on the way into the living room. Now that I knew about it, I kept turning to see outside, still thinking how scary it looked. As we were watching a boring documentary, I took off my girlfriend's socks and started to rub her feet below the blanket. After all, it was a chilly night, and her feet were cold. We didn't have any conversation. I was getting sleepy, but after around 20 minutes, I started hearing noises outside, noises that seemed to be coming from the patio. I grabbed the controller and muted the TV, just to make sure I was hearing right, and I was. It sounded like tiny twigs breaking and grass being brushed. I quickly turned to my right to see outside the window, but I could only see the plants and part of the trunk from a big tree. The noise, although faint, stopped for a few seconds, resumed a few moments later, and stopped again. I stood frozen, watching outside the window, almost as if waiting for a thing to appear. "What is that noise?" I whispered to my girlfriend. But after I did not get a reply, I turned around and stood up a little to see if she had her eyes closed and had fallen asleep. I was a bit freaked out, but I chose to believe it was probably a coyote or some other animal that lurks around in the woods at night. I kept watching the TV muted, waiting for the noise to start again, but after a while, I realized it had stopped. I turned around one more time to see outside the window, and I felt my heart sink into my stomach. The first thing I noticed when I looked outside that time was a faint image of a gray, pale, and tall humanoid figure peeking from one side of the big tree trunk, staring right back at me. I suddenly froze in fear, not wanting to even slightly move or breathe. I watched this thing as it watched me, even though I couldn't see its eyes because of the poor lighting. But I knew it was watching me. I knew it was aware of me. I somehow felt it. The creature was, like I said, pale, really pale. I could see the contrast between its skin and the bark of the tree. The creature was very thin, had skinny shoulders and torso, as well as an elongated neck. It looked like it was around 6 or 7 feet tall. Unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, I cannot distinguish in detail any facial features just because of how dark it was. But I could perfectly picture in my head the shadowy areas around where eyes would be for a person, and another one where the mouth would be. It was sort of grinning. At this point, I was trembling a little, and I wanted to let my girlfriend know what I was witnessing, but I didn't want to move a muscle or break eye contact with this thing. I felt like I needed to remain still or play dead to lose its attention. But no, the creature kept staring at me, not moving an inch, like it was trying to do the same. Then, to turn things worse, the creature started to make an echoey clicking noise, kind of like a frog but slower, and I noticed it begin to turn its head to left side and turn back to look at me really fast. I don't know what to think anymore. All I wanted was my girlfriend to wake up, to prove to me that this thing was real. I began whispering her name in between my teeth and mouth, not even wanting to move my jaw, but she wouldn't wake up. The thing kept doing the same, turning its head to the left and back to me really fast. The creature crouched, kind of like when big predator cats are hunting and lay low, preparing to attack. I whispered. I know, stupid. I didn't even think through the fact that if I woke my girlfriend up, she would start moving, and the thing would notice both of us. But I was so scared that I kept trying. This went around for maybe less than 15 minutes, before I realized I still had my girlfriend's foot in my hand below the blanket, so the thing would not be able to see me moving. Only using my wrist, I slightly pulled her foot back and forth, whispering her name again and again, but no response. Then, I stood in shock when I saw the creature stand up again and started walking backwards, still looking at me and disappearing into the darkness of the patio, doing the clicking sounds again. I passed saliva and blinked a few times, realizing my eyes twitched and itched from staring at the creature the whole time. For some reason, I couldn't turn my head around. I kept looking in the direction where the creature disappeared, listening for sounds and waiting for it to appear once again. A few minutes passed, and I took the chance to turn around. Slowly, as if in slow motion, I turned my head to my girlfriend and started calling her name louder while pushing her leg and quickly scribbling my fingers on the sole of her foot to wake her up fast. Her foot jerked and she started turning. I stood up to her shoulders and patted her, whispering, "Hey, wake up!" She opened her eyes and squinted at me, adjusting to the light of the TV, wondering why I woke her up. I kept telling her to remain still and silent when I heard the sound again. She looked at me, noticed the concern in my eyes, and asked, "What's wrong?" "Shh, be quiet," I followed, putting 2 fingers on her lips and looking into her eyes. I could see she was getting freaked out. I don't blame her. I would be too if someone woke me up, looking scared and telling me to be quiet. The clicking sound went off again, but it was louder this time. almost as if that thing was on the other side of the window. This time, both of us heard the noise and more scared. "What is that?" my girlfriend asked, but I remained quiet. Again, in slow motion, I started to turn my head to the window to check, and there it was. The thing was right outside the window, only a couple feet away and staring right back at me. This time, I had a clearer vision of how it looked, and I was wrong. I was petrified in fear when I noticed it didn't have a mouth where a person would have it. Instead, the mouth was on its neck, which opened horizontally, not vertically. As it opened its mouth, it vibrated with the clicking sounds, and hundreds of small razor-like teeth shined with the window glare. It had oval-shaped eyes that were as dark as the night. I felt its gaze pierce through my soul. I started shaking and breathing faster, not believing what I was seeing. My girlfriend peeked by my side to see what I was looking at, and I instantly felt her body tense up under me as she started to ask me in a trembling voice, what was that thing? But no answer came out of me. Now, we were both scared to even move a muscle. After the humanoid noticed my girlfriend move, it gave a step forward and lowered its head, almost as if it was scanning us. We jumped in fear after seeing the thing doing it, because we thought it would start coming toward us. My heart was beating so fast that I thought I would faint any time. Then, the thing began to walk slowly to its right side, in the direction where the door to the corridor was, resuming the clicking sounds. If you have seen the movie Signs, and remember the scene where the humanoid came out of the bushes outside the house, that would be an accurate representation of what we saw. We took a good look at every inch of that thing's body. It walked with its head turned to us. After we lost sight of it through the window, we both sat up and looked at each other, when suddenly, we heard something scratch the metal door that led to the corridor, as if the thing was grazing its fingers on it. Without thinking twice, I grabbed my girlfriend's wrist and jolted out of the living room, locking ourselves in her bedroom. We sat on the floor right next to the bedroom, hiding in case that thing got inside. The scratching sounds continued, and my girlfriend started to sob, still asking about what we saw. I felt powerless, knowing I couldn't do much to reassure her. I could only hold her and hope for the thing to give up and leave. The noise continued for about 3 minutes, when it suddenly stopped. Then, we began hearing stepping noises all around the house, and we kept turning to whatever direction we heard the noise come from. Eventually, the noises ceased, and after an hour or so, we figured the creature had left. My girlfriend, still with tears in her eyes, told me if we can lay in bed. I agreed because my back was hurting from being in that crouched position for over an hour. We slowly crawled into bed, making the least noise possible and covering ourselves with another blanket. "Don't worry, everything is going to be okay tomorrow. Try to sleep," I told her as I tightened my grip on her. She didn't reply, but after a while, she fell asleep again. I didn't get a minute of sleep that night. I kept my eyes open, listening to every sound around us. The next day, we didn't even want to touch the subject. All we said was that creature was not from this world. My girlfriend said she felt the creature's gaze pierce into her, almost as if that thing was feeling with its pure sight. Nothing else was said. We were left sort of traumatized. I realized that she was going to have to put up with that fear of going outside in the future, and I didn't want that thing anywhere near her again, or her family. Days after the encounter, we both suffered from nightmares. She mentioned that sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming and trembling, and wouldn't be able to stop until her mom went to check on her. The fences that separated the patio and woods have been redone since. They now stand at 2 meters tall, blocking any easy access from the woods. Before this, they had to make sure they didn't have to go outside at night. They have not had any encounters since, but my girlfriend insists that the patio gives her the chills at night. I keep wondering what that thing was, that humanoid creature, some kind of alien.